I'm really excited about our new coaching offers, which we've kind of talked about on the podcast, but basically we're starting to offer for a whole bunch of different topics that people can get one coaching session or just like a package of a few coaching sessions to really kind of like tackle that thing and walk away with what they're looking for. I think a lot of people are just feeling overwhelmed and burnout on commitments and memberships and all this stuff. And so we're seeing a need for people to be able to get those bite size.
Right.
But it got me, this isn't like a new realization, but painfully I've been realizing since starting a business that like I'm a very holistic person and not in the way that word is typically used. Like I'm not necessarily,
So not positively.
I'm not that into like, what I mean is I tend to approach things in terms of, I want to get to the root cause. I want to solve the whole thing, not a piece of it. I don't like surface level hacks. They drive me crazy.
Right.
I don't like diets. I don't like short term, like let's go do paleo 30-day whole 30.
Right. Because then you're like, what after the 30?
Because after that,
Right.
I'm back to square one again. I'm not judging people who do. I know I have close friends who really benefit from those kind of pops of energy.
Yep.
I don't like those kind of approaches. I just in my life want to do the holistic.
Holistically, how can I
solve.
like stay in shape or lose weight?
I think it's the engineer mindset. I've
Yeah.
realized as I meet other people who come from the engineering background, it's like it's ingrained in you to like, no, get to the root, get to the bottom of it. Like what is actually causing all the problems and solve that so the whole thing is solved sustainably.
Yep.
Problem is this doesn't work in the real world. It's
Tell me
great
more.
if you
Tell me
design
more.
bridges. I hope you approach it that way. But for all of us, it just,
Well, what part do you not feel like doesn't work in the
well, for me,
world?
coaching is like, if I'm going to do coaching, I'm all in. I'm doing like 2 years of coaching, the most in-depth, all-encompassing way. So I can truly solve the root cause problem and it's forever changed.
Right.
But most people don't like that approach. That's too
Well, it feels
cumbersome.
too long. Too long.
I just want like a quick something. And
Yeah.
okay, there's plenty of things I'm like that too. I mean, I love a good unhealthy snack, but it's just,
Me
you know
too.
what I mean? So anyway, point is, we're making this shift partly because it takes me forever to, get over my stubbornness of like, hey,
You're like, no.
one coaching session is not going
Yeah.
to solve your life, but it can
Right.
solve a lot, especially with us. Like we're very good at what we do. And so we can get you a result really quick. It's not going to solve the root cause most of the time because that's habit formation. That's rewiring mindsets and habits and long-standing narratives. And that's why like coaching long-term really works. But there's a lot to gain from like a short pop.
Yeah. Like how many times have someone come to me before and said, I just need one session to figure out what I'm doing wrong with an interviewing process. And I've been able to be like, there it is. I've unlocked and they come back and say, I landed.
Yeah.
Because that was actually the problem.
Yeah.
So there are topics like that. Or I am the kind of person who continually avoids having difficult conversations. Those are okay. So let's first talk a little bit about why.
Yeah.
And then second, let me give you a framework to
Yep.
start practicing. Those are perfect examples of, you don't necessarily have to meet 20,000 times. You just have to, but you do have to walk away and start trying to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah. Or getting like feedback. I want somebody to I want to bounce this thought or this idea or this
Yeah.
plan off somebody and get their feedback in a place where I know I trust their opinion or their feedback. Or even to your point about a framework, there's still that you can learn a lot of things online. You can go get a framework online, but then actually implementing it is where people get stuck. And so it's helpful to talk it through with someone, figure out where to start, figure out where your hang up is. Or sometimes my favorite is a lot of people just love the space on your calendar forces you
Yep.
to learn the framework
Yep.
versus like me, I think I have 89 tabs open in my Safari browser on my phone because it's like stuff that I was like, ooh, that's a good article. And I
Interesting.
open it and never even read it.
Oh, I didn't know that about you.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, constant.
It's time for a coaching shout out.
Mm.
Can we do this one with an accent, please?
Shout out to Dana today. And Dana was coaching somebody who was trying to get a new job, trying to get a raise, kind of increase their income out of it. This is basically, she got him it was a win. She helped him land a new job that paid twice as much as before. And Dana is awesome at this. I actually think about this all the time, maybe because I'm the business owner. I'm like, we need to market this. Like, this is actually what sells. Instead, we market all the fluffy stuff, like find more fulfillment.
Right.
No, we just need to market, like, we will
Pay
help
raise.
you double
Right.
your salary. Done. People are buying it. But Dana really is so good at that.
She will help you have the confidence and the words and the approach to get that. Yeah,
it sounds made up. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. Like, Dana makes it happen.
Yeah, she does.
So shout out to Dana and to that person, because I think a big stuck point for this person was that they actually needed an entirely different job, but that can be a hurdle to know how to get there.
Yep. All right. We love to have personality conversations, and sometimes it's a gripe, sometimes it's myth. This one's a little bit about a myth. All right. So in the Myers-Briggs, you and I are both, so I'm really going to throw you under the bus here. Are you ready for it?
I'm in.
Okay. So we're both P's on Myers-Briggs, which stands for the perceiver, which in general, if you were to describe a perceiver, they're a little bit more, I always say they like to use pencil for their calendar versus a pen. So everything's like got options. And like, no, I can erase that and change it at any moment.
Yeah.
They like the calendar. They like the calendar, but they really like to have options. They're a little bit more not as stuck to their ways and routines.
Right.
And things
versus
like that.
the other letter there, the J, likes things nailed down and defined.
That's right. They like decisions made, and we like more options, right? But I think the funny thing about you and I that is so different, and also this is why you should never typecast anyone.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to do it to you now, Steve. I'm actually here for it. I love this stuff.
And you're working on it constantly, and you're doing so good.
Don't just throw me under.
Is that you struggle thinking through the actual timeline of a day.
Oh,
the timeline of a day.
I'm terrible at it.
But I'm a P, and I'm constantly thinking about the timeline. So I think that's just hysterical that we're both P's.
Yeah.
And like we had this experience the other day where we were meeting together, and you knew I had to be somewhere else across town. And I was like, you were so impressed that I was like, not only on it, talked about it verbally a few times throughout that day, but I was like early. You're like, I would have stayed longer.
Yeah.
You would have pushed it to the limit.
You were like getting ready to leave like 2 hours in advance. I'm like, where are you going? And it was the classic. And then we did kind of joke about it because I don't remember the time. Let's say your meeting started at 2:00.
Yeah.
I was like,
my gosh,
it's 12. You've got 2 hours. Like,
right. I was like, no,
you can leave at 1:59.
Right.
That's actually how my brain on its own works. Is like, well, it's at 2:00, so I'll leave at 1:59.
Right.
Obviously, I know that's not right, but that's how my brain works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So we're both P's, but I think a lot about time. You do not. I just wanted to throw that out there. But I will tell the world your little hack that you're working on as you've really worked on this specifically with your admin, that she is helping you by putting timelines in there for you.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like,
leave now to get there on time.
She puts on your calendar drive times or prep times and things like that, the things that your brain is not naturally thinking through.
Oh, now you have me wanting to go on so many J versus P things.
Yeah. Well, you can't, because this was only about me throwing you under the bus.
Yeah.
And so I did it. But I'm super proud of how much progress you've made. But I just think it's hysterical. The bottom line is that we're both P's, and I think about timeline and you don't. There you go. That's it.
We're chatting today with Jeff Apfel, and he is based in Southern California. He's originally from Chicago, so we were fist bumping virtually about Midwest life. But he's the founder now of Office Intelligence. But as most of our guests, he had a windy, non-linear career path.
Yes, or why would we be talking to him?
But he started, really for most of his career, he was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he was even an in-house general counsel, so kind of top of the food chain as in a legal role within a big company. And then he shifted completely, and he's even started his own business now for a number of different reasons.
Yep. I think our listeners are going to love hearing his story. I love that when they recognized in their family that some values had changed, that they reassessed and made some decisions based off of that. And also, I think that it's really helpful as he shares about how he reflects back around some specific skill sets and how to bring them back into the season of life where he's at right now.
It's so good. I know. It's one of these interviews where we hit on so many different themes that are typical for Greenhouse, but like that happened in his real life, in his
Yep.
story. It's almost like you really got to listen to the interview and maybe pause a few times, because he experienced so many of those different things, whether it's, trying to move up in a role within a company, trying to change companies, trying to like find his sweet spot and what is he good at, what does he love to do, making big shifts. But then, like you mentioned, a lot of it, if you pay attention closely, was more about personal values, family core values, things that they wanted their life to be like, and the changes kind of helping to make that true.
Yep.
Again, this is Jeff Apfel, founder of Office Intelligence.
I graduated with a degree in business, and a minor in German, which hasn't really gotten me that much. But I, interestingly, or maybe not, I studied entrepreneurship as sort of a focus within my undergraduate studies. And after graduation, somehow wound up as a software developer. I got admitted to a program at a very large, at that time, it was a Dutch bank that had acquired a very large bank in Chicago, which is where I'm originally from. And this new program was intended to teach people, recent grads who aren't technical, right? Didn't graduate with a degree in, software engineering or anything like that, or network architecture, but to teach them how to code.
Okay.
And so I don't know what really drew me to that program. I had some other, job offers at the time, mostly in tech, but more of a sort of business or marketing focus. But anyway, I thought it would be great to start accumulating some of these skills that I never really dreamed I would either want to learn or should learn, anything like that. So got admitted to this program. And so I was a software developer after a 3-month sort of intense training program, and got placed into a group within this bank to do a little less on the coding side. It was more like QA, some architecture, and it was okay, but it was time to kind of take a leap somewhere else. I wasn't really thrilled with working for a large bank. It was really structured, as you can imagine. And then moved over to work for a consulting firm, did some development work there, and kind of just got bored with it.
Yeah.
And it was probably not because, the subject matter itself bored me. It's that I wasn't getting the kind of direction that I thought I needed. But I started thinking about, longer term, what do I want my career to be? Can I really see myself as a software developer, working as a developer, QA, specialist, something like that? Didn't really see that. It didn't really spark my interest as much as it would, should have. So I decided to go to law school. I was deciding actually between getting an MBA and going to law school. For reasons I won't bore you with. I chose a law school path, but always thinking that after I got my law degree and passed the bar exam, I'd work in house for a company, because I have obviously I have that business degree, but I also come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad and my grandfather had their own business. My grandparents on my mom's side had their own businesses. So it's kind of like in my blood. I wanted to work in business, not necessarily as an entrepreneur, but in business. And I figured I would add a lot of value if I also had a law degree and had some legal training.
So you didn't intend to be the lawyer. That was not why.
Well, so yeah. So as you work, when you're an in-house attorney, so you're a licensed attorney, you have one client, and that's the company you work for.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's what really intrigued me was, as an in-house lawyer, you have a front seat to every function within a business, whether it's, finance, product, marketing, HR, like you name it. You're involved at every step of the way to some degree or another in all these different functions. And so that to me was really intriguing. And so, yeah, anyway, so I went to law school, graduated, and then was fortunate enough to know somebody. This is back in the early 2000s. I'm dating myself a long time ago. I was fortunate to know somebody who worked for a tech business. At that time owned by a company called Interactive Corporation, IC. And I was able to get my foot in the door as, the most junior type of a person in a legal department that you can be. And that started my career as an in-house attorney. And so for the bulk of my overall career, over 2 decades, I worked for various companies as an in-house attorney. So sort of being really what I viewed myself as a partner to the business and helping them, helping guide them, not just from a legal perspective, but also with business strategy. And that's one of the benefits of working inside of a company rather than, let's say, having your law firm. And yes, of course, you provide legal advice, but you don't really get involved in business strategy so much when you're, external counsel. But when you're inside, when you're inside counsel, in-house counsel, your job is to know the business backwards and forwards so that you can provide that legal advice, but also business strategy counsel. And so, I worked for a variety of companies, anywhere from startup businesses where I was like the 23rd or 24th employee, all the way to the other end of the spectrum, working for Accenture, which used to be Andersen Consulting way back when. Ironically, I actually worked for Andersen after that thing I was telling you about. For a little bit. So I made full circle coming back this time as a lawyer. Was there for about 6 years. At Accenture at that time when I was hired, there were already, let's say, 150,000 employees worldwide. By the time I left, it was roughly 6 years later, I think there were over 400,000 employees. So, you're kind of really siloed, but it was a great company to work for. I'm sure it still is, because they really encourage you as an employee to kind of roam around in terms of your career path within the firm. There's so much that you could do. And so you could actually be entrepreneurial inside a large organization like that if they encourage that type of movement and, not just being siloed.
I do find that's why a lot of people who have the windy career path ended up in somewhere totally different. And I have a similar thing because they were in a big company where it was normal to move around and try different things. Whereas maybe like my grandparents, for example, would be really confused how I got from A to Q. And it's like, well, because within one company, like a lot of different opportunities came up that I wasn't planning for. But was that part of what brought you to where you're at now? Or I guess I didn't mean to cut you off. Tell the other part of the story.
Yeah, sure. So I ended up leaving Accenture because I had an opportunity to become general counsel for a well-funded startup business called Albert out here in Southern California. And it was my first opportunity to be a GC. And so general counsel, you're the lead attorney for an organization. And I couldn't really pass up that opportunity. So started over there at Albert. They had just closed their Series A raise. And so I was there for their Series B and Series C raise. So the Series B was about $50 million, led by Capital G, which is Google's venture firm. And the $100 million round, the Series C, was led by General Atlantic, a very large VC. And so think of that experience that I had, and I was there for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was focusing predominantly on transactional matters. So, every contract you can imagine, every type of contract you can imagine, employment work, at any area you can imagine within a corporate function, I had, some kind of exposure to, some more than others. But as a general counsel for especially a well-funded startup tech business, now all of a sudden I'm leading that function. I'm not just a part of it, I'm leading it. And so I had never really been involved in capital raises before. I mean, maybe tangentially, but not directly, and not helping to lead those raises. So, but this is what I wanted. This was sort of the pinnacle of my career path, right? As an in-house lawyer, this is what you want. You want to become general counsel at some point in your life. So very fortunate to have had that opportunity. But it did come to, it got to a point where, my wife also works full time in a fairly, stressful position. She leads a team. She works in the institutional asset management space. And it just got to a point where, with 3 kids, after kind of outsourcing childcare, for lack of a better term, for so many years, and seeing our kids get older. My daughters, we're taking her to college next week. It got to the point where one of us really had to kind of pull back from the full-time thing, and for reasons I won't bore you with, we decided that it was best for me to pull back from full-time work. This was already a couple years ago. And so, all of a sudden I'm a stay-at-home dad and loving it and helping, provide that parental guidance on a day-to-day basis, most of the day, right, to our kids. And yet I always felt this sort of burning desire to start a business. I've been involved with some startup businesses in the past as a partner. This time I figured, hey, I do have some additional hours during the day, depending on the day, on my hands. Like, why don't I, pursue this, an opportunity to start my own business? And I was thinking, all right, well, one thing that I know is missing from a lot of sort of the educational path is practical skills and the proper mindset for a successful career. And as an attorney, obviously I've been through law school. It didn't take me long to figure out that you really don't learn that much in law school. And yes, that's after 3 years and over $100,000 of law school loans. And in particular, you take 1 full year of contracts in law school, and it has nothing to do with the practical real world. Like, you don't learn practical skills, how to read contracts, understand them, draft them, negotiate them, translate them for the business folks. And so I thought, you know what, why don't I develop a couple courses that are geared towards law school graduates so they can be better prepared for their real world once they start working either at a law firm and it doesn't matter what you do. Almost every single practice area in law is touching contracts, whether you're a trial attorney or a transactional attorney like me. Everything has to do with a contract in some sense or another. So that was the idea originally, but then I started thinking, well, it's kind of a small audience, relatively speaking, right? Like, maybe every year there are about 30,000 or so people graduating from law school. It sounds like a lot, but for generating or creating a business that's like a one-to-many model where you're creating courses that it's not like one-on-one coaching, for example. It's just a one-to-many model. I decided maybe I'd table that idea, but I still like the idea of developing courses because I have, over 20 years of experience navigating my way from, a lowly entry level role to the C-suite, right? And so I could package this experience that I have,
Sure.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, right? In a way that would be tremendously helpful, not just to new lawyers, but to really anybody, any young adult, whether they're, a college graduate or a college student, or maybe that they're not going to college, they're just going straight into the workforce. But I could package this sort of a wisdom that I've accumulated over the years for people in these concise courses so that they can at least get a head start, right? And not just on these skills. One of them that I emphasize quite a bit is communicating effectively at work, but also with as I said earlier, just the right mindset so they can help themselves navigate their way, hopefully in a shorter time frame than it took me to reach that sort of the pinnacle of my chosen career path. And that sort of spawned office intelligence.
That's so cool. I mean, my experience was so similar to yours in engineering school, where I remember having this fear kind of my last few weeks of college. And I was looking around like, does anyone else worry that they're going to ask me to design a bridge and I still have no idea how to design a bridge? Like,
right.
They're going to, and we're at these career fairs where it's like Boeing and Google and Apple and Facebook interviewing us. And I'm like, if they ask me to design a plane, I don't know anything about that, and I'm graduating. It was like this very almost naive view of it, for sure. But I think I was also just being like incredibly like boots on the ground, practical. Like, I actually don't know how to do anything in this job yet. Mm-hmm. And then you get to work, your first job, your first day, and realize, well, it took longer than a day, but realize like, no, it's actually what I do all day is learn how to set meetings, learn how to run meetings, learn how to manage projects, learn how to have relationships in the workplace, learn how to like influence people or present something. It had nothing to do with like the subject matter of school. Of course, those things matter and play into it, but that like blew my mind. And I remember kind of looking around like, is anyone else thinking this is crazy? Clearly there was more than just me thinking it. At least there was also you. You're the only other one. I'm like, is anyone else thinking this is crazy? It is kind of a, like almost a scary thought, but yeah, no one talks about it. So it's a bit of this like, just hush, hush, just kind of like,
and that amazes me.
That amazes me.
College, generally speaking, I know that there are exceptions. Obviously, there's an exception to every rule. But as a general rule, college still doesn't teach these fundamental, you can call them soft skills, whatever it is. I mean, I think there are more than just soft skills that are core to being successful in an organization. But they still don't emphasize it. Everything is still theoretical to a large degree. You have this sort of like amorphous, blob of a major, right? And you're taking these classes. They don't really dig in deep in the subject matter as it is, but you're not getting the type of instruction that, at least on day one, again, you have a head start, right? You know how to deal with certain personalities. I mean, we've all been there, right? All the wide spectrum of personalities that you're going to be forced to work with. It's not an option. This is, your company. I say this oftentimes. Your company is now your family, right? For as long as you're there, you can pick and choose your friends, but not your family. Just like you, generally speaking, can't choose who you work with and who you work for. So you have to learn how to interact with those people in a way that's going to be not just productive for the company, but for yourself and your growth. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't college focus on that? I mean, that's an entire semester of like 4 courses or something. 4 or 5 courses.
Okay, but as much as we could go down that path forever, back up for a sec though. Like, what were you experiencing when you decided to shift out of this long, successful career in law? I hear the part about deciding, okay, one of us as parents needs to step it back. But like, what was that like for you that's a huge shift. That's a huge decision.
It was. And we're fortunate enough to even have the opportunity to make that decision, right? Where we could rely on just one income, not 2, especially living in coastal California. Like, that's a daunting decision. Yeah. And in all honesty, it wasn't a difficult decision to make. I wish we would have been in a position much sooner to make this decision. But, the fact is we just weren't financially in a position to make this decision sooner. So yeah, this was really, just to provide a little more context, our youngest son really needed some additional help. And it wasn't something that we were going to outsource or try to outsource, right? It's a parent that provides the best guidance for their child. And so it became more and more apparent over the years that he needed more of our support. And so, finally we decided, okay, well, one of us is going to let go of the full-time, career. And it was me. To do that.
Was that a series of conversations? Was that more short-term decision? How did that decision play out for you guys?
It wasn't, it was pretty clear. We knew that the decision had to be made. It was really a question of who was going to let go of the full-time gig. And
so you guys just rock, paper, scissors one day? Or?
No, we made the decision primarily based on a number of factors, one of which is stability. Like, who has the more stable job? Now, as we all know, there is really no such thing as stability, right? And there are very few, if any, companies that are really loyal to their employees such that they'll never let them go. That doesn't happen, right? So, however, all things considered, we did feel that my wife's job was more stable. She was she's been at the same firm for a very long time, 15, 17 years, something like that. And here I was as general counsel, but for a startup that's still trying to, prove itself in the marketplace. And just the reality of the situation is, despite raising a tremendous amount of money, the company burns through it pretty darn fast. Particularly with marketing expenses. And so, it was just kind of a practical decision at the end of the day.
How long after you made that decision and you were a stay-at-home dad, when did you realize I'd like to add something else to this? Like, I would like to bring in this entrepreneurial piece now?
It was probably a few weeks after I left my job.
Okay, so pretty quickly your brain started stirring around. I do have these like windows of time in a day that I could do something.
Yeah. And look, I would encourage nearly every person who's working, in some kind of professional role to become an entrepreneur, for many reasons. And there are different forms of being an entrepreneur, right? I alluded to this earlier. You can actually be very entrepreneurial inside a company if the company is going to give you the support. You can, let's say, if you have a good argument to create a new product, for example, you may get support. And so that way you're not putting your neck on the line, at least with your own pocketbook. You're actually putting, the company's wallet on the line. So there are a lot of advantages to going that route. And I actually had opportunities to do that, inside a couple different companies that I worked for. Obviously, when we think of entrepreneurship, we think of not so much that, but hey, hanging your own shingle, at some kind of a shop or an office, and going about it on your own, taking that personal risk, not just financially, but also from a reputational perspective. You are putting your reputation on the line when you start your own business. And so, for me, while I do love the work that I did as a general counsel, I didn't really see myself wanting to focus on that as a new business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sort of being, let's say, an outside counsel to startup businesses. That would definitely fit within my sort of experience. But I really enjoy teaching. I've always enjoyed being a mentor to people, and not just people who have been on my team working for me, but also my peers, right? So as a lawyer in-house, the vast majority of people that I interact with on a daily basis, they're not lawyers, like, thank God. Uh, they're business people, they're product managers, they're in business development, marketing, they're in HR and benefits. And I always enjoyed sharing my knowledge about, the law or certain, organizational structures, or discussing risk factors. I always enjoyed doing that with business people, and sort of teaching that. It's funny. I had mentioned maybe before we started recording that I lived in Germany for a while. I taught a business English class in Germany to these business students. And from then on, I loved teaching. I loved answering questions. I loved being able to share whatever knowledge and experiences that I've accumulated over the years with other people, so they can benefit from that. And so that's really all what office intelligence is about. Like everybody else, I've made a hell of a lot of mistakes over the years. I think I've learned from most of them, hopefully all, but definitely most of them. And so why not share those mistakes with others and share my learnings with others, so that they don't have to make them like I did. And so if we can sort of collapse the time frame that it takes from somebody to get from, entry level position to, I don't know, some leadership role or whatever that person wants to achieve, that feels good for me. And yeah, it's also an opportunity to run a business. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. It's helpful, I'm sure, for people. So many more people are trying their hand at business now, or like you said, kind of doing different versions of entrepreneurship. So maybe kind of a last question here is, what's been challenging to you getting into this space of entrepreneurship, starting a business? What's been surprising or difficult about it?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Well, so those are, a couple different questions, right? Surprising and difficult. What's been difficult about it is trying to figure out who my customer is exactly. Like, I thought I knew. I still think I kind of know, but I had a good friend challenge me on this question. And it turns out that he made me think about this question a lot harder than I otherwise would have. And also, one thing that I've learned so far, and it's still kind of in the infancy stages here, but one thing I've learned so far is that, and I don't know how widely applicable this is to other businesses, but for mine, what I'm learning is that what I originally thought was going to be a product or a service that was going to generate revenue for the business, it actually may not be that at all. That to me is a surprise.
Yeah. That's a really common one, by the way. That is maybe one of the most common ones. I haven't seen any studies on this, but that is so interesting that you say it like that.
Yeah. So, we packaged these two inaugural courses. One is communicating effectively at work, and the other is how to build a successful career. And they're these well-produced courses. We weave in animation, illustrations, motion graphics, and combine that with live action. So there's a lot that goes on in not just production, but post-production. And so I have these like shiny new courses that I'm working on marketing and promoting, hopefully selling access to. But in parallel, I've started developing these sort of short take videos, anywhere from, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes that are topical. One, for example, is discusses offer letters, right? So it's a contract. Most people don't think of an offer letter as a contract, but it is. And when somebody gets an offer letter from a prospective employer, what do? They look at it to make sure that the salary is there, right? It's written correctly. Their title is correct. Maybe it'll say who they're reporting to. And then, oh yeah, there are benefits. Great. Where do I sign? Well, they skip over like 8 or 10 really important sections, and they either don't care to know what those sections are about, or they do. They read them and they don't fully understand them. But it's a job, maybe a well-paying job if they're lucky, and they go ahead and sign. Not the best approach. You should know what you're signing before you sign it. So, just something like that. I recorded a video, and I'm going to record a lot more videos like that. Again, topical, posting them on our YouTube channel. And who knows, maybe they'll get a lot of eyeballs and generate subscriptions to the channel. And then what's associated, hopefully, with that is potentially ad revenue. And yeah, then some other avenues that are just, it was not top of mind. I was just thinking, okay, I'm going to build these courses.
Right,
They're going to be very well produced, and that's where the revenue is going to come from. Yeah, I still hope that's going to be the case in part or even large part, but that's not necessarily it.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to hear your full story. So thanks for sharing kind of a bit of the beginning to end there, because I know so many people find themselves bouncing around and think they're the only ones. And it was just kind of fun to hear a bit of your journey.
One thing that stands out to me before you close is that you assessed some of your favorite skill sets throughout your career journey and brought them into where you were now. You were using them, but they weren't the main source of your day. They weren't the main part of your day, but you reflected back and said, those were the skill sets that made me feel the happiest or the most alive. And you brought them into where you are now. And I think that's an important thing for our listeners to hear too, that it's important to reflect back on those and remember that our journey is also about many, many, many different skill sets, and which ones we pull out when and where are also interesting and part of the journey.
Totally agree. Yeah. Find out, obviously you figure out what you're good at. Everybody is good at something. And then also if you can blend that with something that you enjoy, then that's it. And you don't have to, try your hand at starting your own business. You can find a role that you're a role at a company. It could be a small organization. It could be a medium or a large organization, but you can absolutely find that role where you're going to thrive in it because you're good at what you do and you actually enjoy it. And I think generally speaking, only good things are going to happen as a result.
I was going to ask where people can find you.
Well, so for the business, they can go to officeintelligence.com. They can see our course offerings there. They can watch some sample videos as well. And then, directly, they can email me at Jeff, Jeff, at officeintelligence.com.
All right. Is your YouTube channel also the same as your title?
They just have to search for Office Intelligence on YouTube, and we're just building it out right now, so it's far from optimized.
Got it.
They should be able to
leave lots of comments.
No. Give me some time. Give me a few months.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Fun talking with you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
You bet.